Good morning, saints. Today is Sunday, April 26th. May the Lord add his blessing to the hearing of this message. Imagine it. It's the evening of the day of Christ's resurrection. They don't know what happened. They just know Jesus is gone. Cleopas and one other disciple are traveling about 7 miles on the road that would take them to a small village called Emmaus, where they were to meet up with the other disciples. What did these two find to talk about on that walk? I'm pretty sure that they were both discussing what supposedly happened that morning. Really, if you look at each gospel in the New Testament, each gospel accounts for the resurrection differently. Whether it's Jesus telling Mary to go tell the disciples that he will meet them on the mountain, or the Marys meeting 2 angels in shining white robes confirming that Christ had risen. And there's even an account that says that Pontius Pilate paid to have soldiers stay on guard outside the tomb just in case Jesus' followers tried to steal the body. More than likely, the entire country was just buzzing with what's happened over these last few days. Scripture says these 2 men were talking with each other about all these things that had happened. And while they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near them and came aside them, but their eyes were blinded spiritually, and they did not recognize that this man, the stranger with them, was Jesus Christ. So Jesus asked, "What are you discussing so intently with each other while you're walking along?" They stood still, Scripture says. Very sad. Then Cleopas answered him, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have taken place?" Jesus asked him, "What things?" You see, and this is something that Jesus used to do in asking his disciples who people thought he was. Who do the people say I am? Remember? And even today, saints, a busy world keeps asking, who is this Jesus anyway? Saints, with all the TV pundits, all the messages and posts and photos and videos and opinions, both negative and positive, are you getting overwhelmed? It's almost too much to take in, the good or the bad. We're being bombarded. And just the fact that we're trying to process it all can be overwhelming. What would you think? What would you say if today, while taking a walk at Ocean Point, or a walk at New Wagon, or while walking with your spouse on the footbridge in Booth Bay Harbor, what would you say if someone came up to you and asked you, what virus? What's COVID-19? You'd ask, where the heck have you been? How would you respond? And just as life-changing was this discussion on the road to Emmaus. And those disciples never even knew that Jesus was in their midst. Do you know, saints, that Jesus is in your midst? Cleopas started to explain the events of the last few days to the stranger about Jesus of Nazareth, being a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, he said. And he explained how the chief priests and the leaders handed Jesus over to be condemned and crucified. But he had hoped, Cleopas sadly said, that he was the one to redeem Israel. You hear that? Cleopas said he had hoped that Jesus was the one to redeem Israel. You are living through the bizarre circumstances of this pandemic, saints. Do not lose hope that Jesus Christ is coming to redeem you. For you have been redeemed by Jesus' blood on the cross. And then the two disciples continued recounting what the woman had shared with them after finding the stone rolled away and the tomb empty. They even said that some of the men went to see for themselves but did not find Jesus, so they did not believe. And Jesus' admonishment is short, but to the point. How foolish we are, and how slow of heart to believe what prophets have declared. And is it not the truth, people, that it is as Christ had to do for us, suffer things before destiny could be fulfilled? You know, maybe, think of it this way, that the world is going through a sort of suffering. Certain things at the hands of people. We should be tried and tested. And Christ's church must go through a time of change in order for our destiny to be fulfilled. Scripture continues, as they came near the village to which they were going, it looked as if Jesus was going on his way, apart from the two. But they urged him strongly, saying, "Stay with us, because it's almost evening and the day is now nearly over." Now, what's important here, brothers and sisters, is the invitation. The invitation to make to those that are on the road with us. We often become enlightened by those who share this journey with us, and we too can be teachers of the way. Because we all get through this pandemic together. And it's not about reaching the destination like reaching Emmaus, but about what happens during the journey. So Cleopas and the other gentlemen invited the stranger to have supper with them. Now when the stranger was at the table with them, Scripture says he took the bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them. And at that very moment, their eyes were open, and they recognized him as Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, has there been a time while we've been physically apart, when your eyes have been open to the presence of Jesus Christ in even the simplest of things? Jesus finally opened the eyes of those breaking bread together with him to let us know that Jesus has been with us all the time. I think that's the skill we need to nurture while sequestered, don't you? To develop a new awareness of Christ in every day of this pandemic. It will give us hope and resolve. And I'm afraid that the heroes that are on the front lines during this pandemic are so busy caring for others and doing their jobs that they may not be able to actually see the hand of God upon them. There's just been no time for them. And our senior folks, lonely, afraid of the future, at risk. They can be so steeped in worry, so missing the physical church that they're used to, that they might not see the hand of God with them now, through their families and friends, meals on wheels, and other interactions that they would be blessed with, even in these times. I wanted to share with you one of my mom's favorite sayings, which was, "You just can't see the forest for the trees." Now that's an idiom that's been around since 1546 from English writer John Haywood. It's basically a remark my mom used when we were young adults, newly married. We're spending too much time and focus stressing over things, that we would lose sight of the bigger picture, the root of why we are doing something in the first place. Now, my mom Marlene was no prophet, and she was not a writer, but she did have wisdom, and she was a geriatric nurse. And when she see people stress and strain, gripe and complain about the things that they cannot control, and they worry about tomorrow so much that they lose sight of the patients who need them right now. You see, people take work away from God by thinking that they have to be superhuman and to do it all themselves and to get it all done. So much that they forget that they individually, their children and spouses, we're all only human. We cannot see God's presence because we are so intent on seeing ourselves in it. Saints, I too am worried about when this all will be over. But I know, with God at the center, in God's time, we will get through this. I too miss the hugs, and I pray every day for the safety and well-being of the church family, people in our communities, people on the front lines, even people at the grocery stores. I too want to open up America where and when it's safe. But I've seen Christ. How about you? Christ has made himself known, and I'm going to rely more on God and focus on doing things to build up myself spiritually and build up the awareness that God is present so I can pass that on, being who I am, growing where I'm planted. I don't want to break things down. And I understand that each one of you can be, and most have been, the instrument of God right within the four walls of your home, right within the internet and Facebook and on the computer, in your cars and on walks in your neighborhoods. Have you seen Christ? He's been with you all the time. Let God be God, and you'll see Christ even clearer. Maybe someone you know who is hurting needs to hear that from you. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.